You're listening to the Bible Thumping Wingnut Show, the show that's safe for the whole family. Unless your family contains professing atheists.
Ladies and gentlemen, it looks like we may have a new crazy apologist on the block. I present to you Bible Thumping Wingnut.
Bible Thumping Wingnut. I'm like, where do I know that name? You're that guy who said that atheists don't exist.
Bible Thumping Wingnut is manipulative, dishonest, ineffective, and completely incapable of seeing women as equal human beings.
Hey, Bible thumping wingnut, stay in your man cave and keep studying the book written in the Bronze Age.
Well, what have we got here? What do we have here? Bible thumping wingnut.
And welcome everybody to another episode of the Bible Thumping Wingnut podcast. Let's see, this is episode 137. Len Pettis is with me. Just you and me. Just
you and me.
Just the two of us. Episode number 137. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be a doozy, I think.
This one might go down in the books.
Based
for
on
those of you who are on for episode 34 and 35, strap in.
Yeah, let's hope for a different outcome, though. We didn't really like the outcome of that.
We have maturity and history on our side.
Oh boy! So, it's been. This is only like the third time we've recorded, and
I know, man. We got way ahead. And then I had some mandatory overtime I had to do, so I had to work. So, yeah.
And holidays.
Yeah, family, Jesus, baby Jesus.
Stuff going on. But here we are, and today is a special day. Well, first let me tell you where we're going to go, okay? Episode 137. We are going to talk about, as you can tell by the title, we're going to talk about the government. We're going to talk about Oregon. We're going to talk about a mini-series called Making a Murderer. Is that the name of it? Making a Murderer?
Bingo. Yep, that's it.
And then we're going to talk about something that happened in Philadelphia today. And it should be good. It should be good. So I hope we make it.
Like I say, we got maturity and history on our side, so we're good, baby. We're good.
The history isn't all that good, really. But
right.
Whenever we talk about the government, you and we disagree.
Well,
with love.
We'll get into that. I know you have some other things that you want to talk about. So,
well, the government runs a lottery, and it's $700 million. Did you get a ticket?
No, I'm a Christian.
Broke for so long, oh Lord, that's just wrong.
I bought me a ticket.
Buy me a lotto and maybe I'll win. The trailer's a leaking, my dog has got fleas. Been working so long that I'm weakened.
Why don't you buy a ticket,
man?
man?
A growling. I wish I had food. You brought me some chicken, oh that would be good.
What did you say?
It's horrible. I hate the lottery.
You hate the lottery?
You know what lottery is? Lottery is taxation of the poor.
Oh, brother.
Where does that money go, Tim?
The government.
That's right.
A lot of it goes to the government.
Do rich people buy lottery tickets? No, they dangle a $700 million carrot out there.
Define rich.
Define rich. 1%ers.
Oh, well, I don't know. I suppose some of them do. The greedy ones do.
Yeah, I hate. I literally believe that Indian casinos that would. I worked at one for a while, and lottery is a very evil institution, and it's designed to get people to voluntarily give their money to the government. It's just a coerced tax, a lighter coercion than just stripping it right from your hands. But here's the wickedness of it: the someone who's on welfare, someone who's using government assistance, whatever. They don't have a lot of money to begin with, obviously. And so what do? They go out like, hey, I'm going to turn it around. And, whole offices. I remember I worked at a place where, like, anytime the lottery came out, like, everybody in the office pitched in and, we'll all split the money and we'll all quit our jobs. And I never bought. Never. You're going to regret it when we win. I'm like, well, when that day happens, you feel free to rub my fat little nose in it. But guess who's got two thumbs and ain't too worried about it?
Oh, brother. Oh, Brian. Well, I don't think it's a sin. I think it can be, it can be abused. It can become sin, but it doesn't have to. So, and I believe in the sovereignty of God. And even though there's a 1 in 292 million chance that I'll win, I only buy one ticket because I know God is sovereign.
You watch about 6,000 people win that lottery, and it has to be split and chopped and cut up, and that's what'll be hilarious. That's not going to happen. I feel terrible. You know what, dude? Like 85% of lottery winners end up bankrupt within 5 years.
Yeah. It's not me though. I wouldn't be me.
That money goes where? Okay, so the government gives you the money, you have to tax it at like 60%, and then you go out and buy your new house that you're going to pay big time taxes on. You're going to go buy your new car that you're going to pay taxes on. Right. You're going to go do all these things, and the government's, you're just giving all the money back.
Why do you go to work at night, Len? Why do you go to work? Because
why do you go to work at night? Because the
all
Bible
you're doing,
says if a man does not work,
all you're doing is putting more money in the government because you have to pay more taxes.
Tim.
The more you work.
Yep.
So stop it, okay?
Right, but here's the thing is, am I working because I'm covetous? Now, some people certainly are. Some people, one of my supervisors, he works every day. Like this time of year, we can work all the hours we want. He literally works every day. He's like, I just want money, man. Just give me more money. Money. I'm like, okay, fine. If that's you, go right ahead. But that's just, that's covetousness. But the government openly promoting this covetousness, which is, covetousness is just simply being unhappy with that which God has already given to you. What do you have that you've not been given? So you go out and buy a lottery ticket because Tim Hurd isn't happy with what the Lord's given him.
Not true.
Yes.
Not true. Hey, I think
you're on Patreon.
I think you're unhappy with the country God gave you. Well, here's a song for you, Len. I found this one just for you.
Did ya?
Mm-hmm. There you go. That's just for you. You need to be content with the country God gave you.
I am content.
And the government God gave you.
I love the government that we should have, which God gave us.
Okay, so we go from the chant, oh, I love America, to this is the American militia song I'm going to play now. You ever heard this one?
I haven't.
hear that?
You can't say stuff like that when I'm drinking my iced tea. Man.
Taking America one county at a time.
Yeah, it's an interesting situation what's happening out there in Oregon. For I don't know, it's not one of those things that I started out too interested in, and mainly because I just don't watch television. I see bits and pieces of it in the news. Sorry.
That was awesome. Did you just win the lottery?
No.
I heard cha-ching.
Something sold on eBay.
That is the lottery. You could play the lottery every day. Cha-ching. Well, you're sitting here on a podcast talking about covetousness, but not happy with what you have or the amount that you've been given, and his alert for selling something on eBay is cha-ching.
It's the fruit of my labor. Oh man.
Oh, so tell us about
well, look, I just wanted to see what's going on with it, because you see the media, you see it all over your Facebook feed for one thing. There's a group of people who are comparing it to Ferguson and why didn't they call Ferguson terrorism, but this is, and stuff like that. So I just read an article which I shared with you, kind of about the history of what the government has done with this piece of land in Oregon that is owned by a family called the Hammonds. And it's pretty staggering, really, when you think about what has happened over the last 75 to 100 years.
Got it down to what it actually is, Len.
What is it?
A group of
white boys.
A group of individuals.
Mm-hmm.
Feel that the government is corrupt. That's the bottom line. Bottom line.
A militia has moved into this federal land, and they've taken over a federal building. That's the boogeyman.
Multiple buildings,
right?
I don't know why do they say building? Because it's like multiple buildings. There's many buildings.
Well, because the bathroom is a porta potty out back, and that's technically a building.
No,
it's got 4 walls and a roof, so that's a building. So the bottom line is this: is that this family.
What does the family have to do with it? They're not even supporting them.
No, I know. I realize that, but this isn't about them. It's not about them. It's about the government's overreach. Look, here's the thing. Think of Germany in the 40s.
Oh, wait a minute. I was waiting for this.
The Jews, but you're not a Jew, so you don't worry about it. They come for the mentally infirmed, but you're not mentally infirmed, so you don't worry about it. They come for the church, but you're not the church, so you don't worry about it. They come, systematically. They come, how far, I guess the question is, how far should a nation let tyranny go before they stand in?
I was ready for this. It didn't take long. It was less than 15 minutes. He brings up Germany.
Yep. Because it's analogous. Because in the lifetime of our grandparents, we've seen tyrannical governments throughout the world.
Wait a minute. You just use a theonomist catch-all word. And listen, speaking of theonomists, I just want to say,
I don't really have a lot of respect for anybody who is a theonomist.
So there you go. Now you stop your theonomist talk.
All right. This isn't theonomist talk.
Okay. Here's the thing, Len. A lot of people are upset at the government for different things. Picking your guns up and going and sitting in buildings that are labeled owned by the government is not a way to fix things.
does the government have the right to own property?
Okay, that's the basic problem right there. They're saying the government is corrupt and they don't like what the government is doing. Okay, whether it's ownership of property or a speed limit or DOT laws or taxation, whatever.
Tim,
the bottom line is corruption of government, whether it's this or it's wrongfully interpreting the Constitution.
Well, Tim,
it's all federal. It's all government corruption that we're upset with.
All right, I hope you're going to let me actually get in on this conversation here, because to discuss the interpretation of the Constitution is to suggest that there's a possibility that the government is correct in this matter, and that's just an impossibility. It's like when the atheist says, "Well, that's just your interpretation," when you tell them about the exclusivity of Jesus Christ. That's, or any cultist, any stripe of unbeliever, when, what are they going to do? They're either going to say that's your interpretation, or they're going to quote Matthew 7:1. Okay? So let's not do what atheists do in this situation, all right? Let's actually look at the document which is supposed to govern our nation, by which
I agree.
We interpret.
I agree, Len.
Romans 13.
Why do we have to take our guns and go occupy government property?
It's not government property. The government doesn't have the right to own property outside of the 10 square miles of Washington, D.C. and the land needed for ports and forts.
So anybody can just...
And those listen, Tim.
So can we just go claim and occupy any government building now? Now that you've made that statement?
That's a complete non sequitur. Oh, that's like the atheist saying, "Well, I don't have any choice in the matter, so I'm just going to do what I want."
Len. I'm upset.
He didn't elect me.
I'm upset.
You're arguing like an atheist.
I'm upset with Obamacare. Okay, somebody's got to do something about Obamacare, right?
Yep.
And it should be repealed. Or let's just say abortion. I'm upset about abortion, so I want to bring attention to myself. Abortion shouldn't be legal. So I'm going to go protest and sit in a federal building with my guns in town and make people so uncomfortable that the local schools can't even have don't even have school open.
Why would they be uncomfortable with people exercising their constitutional right of assembly, their constitutional right to keep and bear arms, their constitutional right to free speech, Tim? Why are you afraid of freedom?
I'm afraid of freedom. There you go.
Look, this is what this is about. And this is about...
No, that was just stupid what you said.
No, it isn't, Tim. It isn't, Tim.
Len, any
group... shut down schools, Tim? The militia did not shut down the schools.
For some reason, they're not having school because of the situation.
Okay, who runs the schools?
The government.
Oh, look at that. Isn't that convenient?
So, go protest. Okay, Len, Mr. Homeschooler, I support your idea for homeschooling. I think it's excellent. I think it's better than government schools.
Says I should do it. So I do it.
Okay, so why don't you go protest the government schools and go occupy your local elementary school and see how that goes over? Bring your guns with you.
Again, that's a non sequitur.
No,
Tim.
You're
not arguing the facts of the matter.
You're protesting. You're protesting the government. The government. Go ahead. You're not happy with it.
No, Tim. Look, we can make distinctions because there are degrees of crime. There are degrees of tyranny. Now, as Christians, right, and we will both concede that this militia, there may be Christians within it, but this is not a Christian militia, right? This isn't like the Black Robe Regiment or something like that.
The one guy,
which, by the way, you would have had to have been against during the Revolutionary War, but that's neither here nor there.
One guy is a Mormon, right?
I think so.
And I watched his town meeting. I watched for an hour him
I didn't see it. What did he say?
he
Is
was
he nuts? Is he nutters?
No, he speaks clearly. He can think logically, but he sounded like Joel McDermott. I tell you, he sounded like Joel McDermott. He says, "We are here. We are here as a militia, and all we need you to do is form a committee in this county right here, and we will come and we will set you free from the federal government. We will start here with this county, and we'll reclaim this county, and we'll start here, and we'll be an example to the rest of America." And he was lobbying the town meeting, which there's a lot of people that from out of state in that town meeting, but he was lobbying them to call the militia from all around the country to come and support them as they battle against the federal government.
Right.
And I don't think they did.
And the thing is, I don't necessarily disagree with the sentiment that the government needs to, that Christians or citizens should be more involved in local government. I think people get far too caught up in the every 4-year presidential and the every 2-year, midterm elections and stuff like that. People get too caught up in that. Look, those aren't the things that really affect our everyday life. The president of the United States does not affect your everyday life nearly as much as your local sheriff or your local school board or your local whoever. So we should be more involved at the local level. I completely agree with that. And but it has to start as Christians with the preaching of the gospel. Not that we're going to usher in Christian principles. Okay, like we just want people to be good and moral. Like, look, yeah, we want people to be good and moral because I don't want my house broken into. I don't want my car stolen. I don't want my children hurt or anything like that. So yes, we do want moral people, but we don't want them moral for morality's sake, right? We want them to come to a saving faith and saving knowledge of Jesus Christ. So I don't necessarily disagree with the sentiment that we should take back America one county at a time. I think that that's the only way that people are going to wake up and get their faces out of their devices, take their, shut off your iPhone for a minute, stop text messaging, get off of Facebook, and, pay attention to what's going on in the world around you. That's the problem. We are amused to death as a nation. We have so many things distracting us that, the government could take over this country without firing a single shot, honestly. And they basically have. I mean, we murder 3,500 babies every day by abortion, and everyone's just completely asleep about it because of the distractions.
The truth be told about this topic, the Oregon yahoos with guns, you and I talked for about 2.5 hours this week.
It was heated.
And
it was heated. In fact, it got to the point where I swore we would not talk about this on the podcast.
Absolutely not. We will not
talk about it.
And name calling and
yeah, you were calling me a lot of mean things.
It was epic. It was epic. And then we took some time off, and we came back, and then I think you came along to my line of thinking a little bit. I set you straight.
Well, here's what I think. Because there's always the discussion whenever we talk about the Christian's role in government of Romans chapter 13. We don't have to read the whole thing. We've kind of covered it here on this podcast a little bit. So, but I believe that Romans 13 and the Constitution go hand in hand, because the Constitution is the document which is supposed to govern our government. We're a government of the people, by the people, for the people. All right. So when an officer of the Constitution, whether it be a sheriff, a military commander, a president, whoever, steps outside of their constitutionally bound duties and they contradict it, that person is no longer an authority under the Constitution. Therefore, we as Christians are no longer required to submit to their authority because they've given that authority up. Now, that's kind of easy in America, where we have this very clear document that other monarchies and dictatorships and things like that don't have.
And I mean, that's a bunch of junk.
Look, we have to deal with our situation as Christians in America living in a Romans 1 world. I mean, that's where we are. We're in a Romans 1 world right now, and we still have to submit to the government as Romans 13 prescribes. But now we have to look at the government. And now we have to look at the government itself and say, are they doing the duties that they're bound to by the document which governs?
No,
and if
they're not. They're not.
Okay, then they're no longer an authority, and we are no longer bound to submit to them.
Right. And I disagree with that. But if we were to subscribe to what you said, we wouldn't have to obey anybody. We would be Christians in full disobedience of policemen. We would be in full disobedience. We could disobey. We could decide not to pay our taxes. We could do all these things, and we Christians would be known as a people who are troublemakers.
No, that's not true, Tim. Because
that's not what we ought to do.
Tim, the majority of police officers uphold the Constitution of the United States and the laws.
Where do you find
police of their state and their counties and things like that? Plenty of people are operating exactly as the documents that they are sworn to prescribe, and it is to them we submit. The problem is, I think a lot of Christians are kind of ignorant to what it is their laws say. So they don't know what they should be submitting to and what they shouldn't. And if that's the case, then look, anyone who comes up to you in a uniform, you just have to submit to them, right?
You oughta.
I mean, if someone says, come with me and get in the car, you have to.
You oughta.
No, you shouldn't. You shouldn't.
Not get in the car.
I will not tell my daughter, look, if someone comes up to my 13-year-old daughter wearing a police uniform and says, come with me, get in the car, I'm not telling her to submit to that.
So...
Because because plenty of people could be.
That's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying.
Listen,
I'm saying
exactly what you're saying.
No, it's not. I'm saying the problem that I have with people like you is your answer to this question. You're walking through the park, all by yourself, middle of the day. A policeman comes running into the park, and he asks you, "Hey, who are you?" What do you say?
I say, that's none of your business.
See,
that's just of the United States.
Oh, brother, you're just being argumentative.
I am not.
The policeman runs up to me in the park. I said, "My name's Tim. I live over here in such and such a town. Is there something wrong? Is there something I can help you with?"
And Tim, you are at liberty to do that. You are absolutely at liberty to do that. Absolutely. But I'm at liberty.
Why do you assume that this is what you know what? I've never used this argument on you. You assume that the policeman is guilty. You don't assume that he's a good cop. You don't assume that he's a good cop. You assume that he's not.
Well, both of us claim to understand total depravity, but clearly only one of us does.
Mm-hmm.
Who is the person in that uniform a sinner?
Yes.
So they're prone to error. They're prone to sin, just like anybody else is, Tim.
So be a jerk. So be a jerk. So be a jerk.
It's not being.
It's none of your business who I am.
Tim, it's about protecting my rights that are guaranteed to me.
You know, there's other things more important. There's other things more important than your right. Be loving. Be kind. Be Christ-like. Be gentle. Be humble.
Sure.
Don't be evasive.
I can all of those things.
Don't be evasive. Don't be a jerk.
Tim,
obviously the guy is under stress. He's running. He's in a uniform. What harm is it? My name's Len Pettis. What's wrong, officer? Can I help you? He might be looking for the person who just harmed your family. And now you're going to act like a jerk. Oh, I don't have to tell you who I am.
But Tim, it's kind of a non sequitur again.
There you go. Every time I make a good point, that's not a non sequitur.
Scenario. Cold cloth. Here's the way I see it, Tim. If an officer comes to my home, right? Let's put it that way. If an officer comes to my home and says, "Can we come in to talk to you?" I'm going to say no, but I would be glad to come outside and speak to you. I'm not going to let an officer into my house without a search warrant, because once they're in, they don't need a search warrant. And anything that they view as probable cause, they can strip down my entire house. So I'm not bringing an officer into my house. Okay.
So when you go outside your house, will you go outside your house? Will you tell them your name, who you are?
Well, they're in front of my house. They can look it up in the.
But they don't know you live there.
Tim.
They don't know you live there, Len.
Tim.
You're inconsistent with what you're saying you'd say on your porch.
Tim, I'm not required to give my papers. I'm not required to give my papers.
You're being inconsistent. In the park, you wouldn't give your name, but on your front porch, you would.
Well, Tim, they're in front of my house. All they have to do is a Google search, 805 Prospect.
They don't know who you are. You could be a visitor. You look like a homeless man.
Be arrested.
Okay, let's turn this a little bit, okay? Because you sent me another video, right? This constitutional lawyer lady. A lot of people have seen the video.
Yeah, Carrie Hall,
and she's right. Well, actually, she's not right in every point. She has decided that the Oregon guys with the guns, they're not there because of the Hammonds. They're actually there because of the Constitution and the government making laws in ways that are not constitutional.
Right.
And you and I agree.
Laws valid and binding.
And you and I agree on that.
Tim, if a law is unconstitutional, is it binding?
It shouldn't be. But you can get in big trouble if you disobey it, because they're the government.
Law requires all 16, everyone 16 and under to get an abortion if they're pregnant. Do you submit?
Len, you know my position on that. You know that my position is the same as Peter and Paul's.
Okay. Oh, hold on. It isn't.
Yeah.
It isn't. It isn't.
Careful, you're distorting everything.
Again, abortion's the easy one. Let's say law passes that says everyone 6 and under must carry a loaded handgun with no safety. Okay, that's kind of stupid.
Yeah, yeah. See, you really have to reach into the pit of stupidity to make your argument.
No, it's not the pit of stupidity, Tim.
Right.
What I'm saying is,
I tried to go in another direction. You want to argue?
No,
go ahead.
You are making the point that a law that is not constitutional is binding on us.
No, I didn't say that. I said you should obey it.
Then why should I submit to So what you're saying is I don't have to submit to a law that's unconstitutional. Is that correct?
You don't have to, but I think you should. As a Christian, unless it causes you to sin.
Fool.
Unless it causes you to sin.
Do you know I have the constitutional right to remain silent when I talk to law enforcement?
Yes, I do.
Okay, then what's the problem? What have I done wrong?
Because
I'm not nice. You're not nice.
Hey, if I thought I was guilty of something, I wouldn't say anything either.
Yeah, well, if I didn't know that the police could take everything I say and parse it and use it against me, I would say whatever I wanted. But I know that that's what law enforcement does.
That's why you treat law enforcement with respect. Don't give them any reason to give you a hard time. Life will go much easier.
Yeah.
So anyway,
that's very easy to say. Ask Stephen Avery how that went for him.
Well, we actually might talk about that if you let me go along to the next place we want to go in this conversation here. Okay, so you and I were talking about this constitutional issue, right? And how the government is not working the way it should. The wrong people are making laws or making decisions that they claim are laws, and then we are all abiding to it. People are interpreting the Constitution wrongly, and then making laws, and people who shouldn't be making laws. Right? We talked about that. The Constitution.
We got that.
Okay. So, what's the remedy? How do you fix that?
That is the $1 million question. It really is, because as I look at politics from a national level personally, I don't see any change that's going to happen. They are two trains going in the same direction, and Republican, Democrat. There are two trains going in the same direction, and one's just a lot faster. The Democrat train is just way faster, and so it's going to get there first. So do you want to take the slow train to hell or the fast train to hell? That's really kind of the way that I see it, to be perfectly honest. So I don't see the solution in national politics. I really don't.
And this is really why, I mean, I think it's safe to say this is why most countries don't survive past 200 years.
Yeah, isn't it? I mean,
what could possibly, I mean, other than complete divine intervention, which isn't impossible.
Well, it's not. I mean, look, we had the Great Awakening. We could have revival in this nation, and this is really where my hope lies, brother. Is that when I look around at the church in America, I don't know if the American evangelical church has ever been at a weaker point in its history. Apostasy, just lukewarmness. This is Laodicea, no question about it. And God uses the weak to demonstrate his strength. That's where my hope is. That God doesn't need a strong church. God doesn't need a powerful church. God is powerful in and of himself. God is sovereign. He's in control. Look, ultimately, who's really steering the bus here, right?
Right, right.
So God is in control, and that, as Christians, that first and foremost is where we have to take our comfort. Look, I mean, if persecution comes to this country and there's no reason to think that it's not, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Is that, am I going to fight then? And that's the thing. I'm not even sure. I'm not sure I advocate for any of this stuff. I'm not saying that a militia is something Christians should do. I'm just saying that everything that they're doing is legal and it's within their constitutional rights to do so.
I disagree. I disagree with you, but I want to make it clear.
You can disagree. You're free to be wrong.
Yeah.
So ultimately, like, our hope for this country lies in the gospel. The hope for this country lies in Christians getting outside of their four walls of their church and reaching people, reaching their neighbors, reaching their coworkers, reaching their community, their schools, everything like that, right? I mean, just get out there and preach truth, and people will hate you for it. They'll hate you for it.
And whether the government is just or unjust or overthrown either by its own citizens or another country,
or it collapses, the house of cards finally falls in on itself.
Preach the gospel.
That's right.
No matter what happens.
That's right.
And because God is sovereign, and that's the way.
That's really, I mean, as Christians, that's where our hope has to lie. I mean, good night. You think I put my hope in the gun I carry on my hip? I don't. I carry it because I trust God, and yeah, man, I just think that ultimately Christ has to be at the center of all of our thinking with this stuff.
Amen. Here's a song you're familiar with. You know what that is?
Yeah.
How many of our listeners are like, I know that. What is that?
Yeah.
That is the theme song for the introduction of the 10-episode mini-series. I guess it's a full series, right?
Yeah.
10 episodes, 1 hour each. The making of what is it called? Making a Murderer.
Yep, Making a Murderer.
Making a Murderer.
That's a Netflix joint. Yeah, it's.
Let me.
First of all, if anyone hasn't watched this, there's probably going to be spoilers here as we talk.
Oh yeah, forget about that. We're spoilers completely.
If you, I mean, everybody's binge watching this thing from what I see on Facebook and Netflix, or not Netflix, Twitter and everything. So, it sounds like everybody is binge watching Making a Murderer. If you haven't watched it, shut off this podcast and go watch it, because we're going to ruin the whole thing for you if someone hasn't already.
But be honest, a lot of people, you're never going to get around to it. So just keep listening to us.
Right.
All right, Stephen.
We'll save you 10 hours.
Stephen Avery lives in the worst state of all 50, and that is Wisconsin. He, in 1985, he was convicted of rape and a brutal sexual assault. And it took 18 years for him to be rightly released from prison.
Yep. Completely.
Because he was clearly not the right person. Now,
but
this
we
is
have to point out.
Yes, I'll point out. He's from a family that was kind of shunned. They didn't fit in with anybody. They were a little awkward, a little quirky, and maybe a little testy, right? A little testy group, and in trouble with the law from time to time. But he had an altercation with a woman. This is why you always obey the law, Len. Always obey the law. Don't take the law into your own hands. He went and he drove one of his distant relatives off the road because she was making false accusations about him. She just happened to be the sheriff's wife. Is that correct?
Correctamundo.
So the sheriff's department doesn't really like him. Somebody's raped, and he was completely framed. And they put him in prison. He did 18 years, and then DNA evidence made it so that he got out.
I wouldn't even say he was framed. I would just say they assumed it was him from the very beginning. I mean, what struck me the most, they assumed it was him, and they just took the evidence and made all the evidence point to him.
But there really wasn't any was there any there was no physical evidence. There couldn't be. He wasn't even. He was miles away.
The eyewitness. He was pointed out in the lineup.
Yeah.
Right. And then what happened? The sketch artist drew his on file mugshot.
That was so
and then
bad.
Framed it.
Yeah.
Framed it and had it hanging in his office or his home or something. It was very, very bizarre.
Anyway, he gets out.
He got hosed.
He got out and don't judge me if I get the dates wrong, but he got out 18 years later. It was about 2003, maybe 2002. He gets out, and within 2 years, somebody's murdered on his property. Allegedly. Well, at least the body parts were found. And
the interesting thing is, he was suing the state of Wisconsin or Manitowoc County. He was suing them. They were in the middle of what is it called? Depositions. They were deposing all of the people who were involved in that case, and he was suing the state for $36 million. And in the middle of that deposition, a woman went missing, and lo and behold, it just so happens that her missing vehicle shows up in the Avery family junkyard,
which is his job. Yep.
Right.
And of course, he was, as far as they know, the last person to see the woman. And here's the thing. The bottom line with this case is there was physical evidence. There was a lot of physical evidence, and there were circumstances that clearly pointed to him. So I think he did it. But this police department, because they were so bent on Stephen Avery, they wanted to bolster the case. And there's no question that they did. They planted evidence. There's no question about it.
There's so many things wrong with this. For example, the woman's body was found in a fire pit, and typically when human remains are found and it's considered a crime scene, the crime lab is brought in to take over. The Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department was handling that evidence for several hours before the crime lab got there to do, which is the people who are qualified to handle human remains and investigate how they got in the state that they're in, right?
I wouldn't.
There was evidence that parts of that corpse had been moved.
I wouldn't even go there. That would be really far down on my list.
Yeah, but if you want to secure a guilty verdict, you want it to come scientifically. So don't you want the people who are experts in the field of handling crime scene, handling a crime scene, which part of which is cremated remains of a corpse. Like, hey, everybody, stand back. We're going to get the experts in here.
Right.
They tainted that. They contaminated that evidence. There's no question about that. They even testified of that at trial, that they didn't have control over the crime scene.
But that's minor compared to the other stuff.
Well, right. I mean, there's the key that was found on the fourth search of the house behind a pair of shoes against a wall.
Seventh.
Okay, yeah. So they searched this property up and down. Now, the accusation is that the woman was hog-tied in his trailer, raped, slit throat, stabbed in the stomach, shot in the head. Okay? Now, not a single drop of blood was found in his trailer. How can this be? How can this possibly be? Listen, I'm a deer hunter. I've been deer hunting for 30 years, man. I know that if I am skinning a deer or gutting a deer, which has significantly less blood than a human body does, there's going to be blood. You'll be able to find blood in a 30-foot radius around me.
But I still think Stephen Avery did it. I think that the police just gave the wrong story. They gave a story they knew wasn't true. The two things that are of evidence that are most notable is the key. They didn't find it till it's the seventh time they searched. And the police officer who found it is a police officer who was not even supposed to be involved in the case because he was being sued by Stephen Avery. Right. So he wasn't even supposed to be there. So the number one physical evidence that was found in Stephen Avery's apartment, in his trailer, in his bedroom, was found by this individual.
That's right.
Which, with that alone should at least be thrown out. And then here's the big one. Because Stephen Avery was in prison for 18 years, at some point they drew blood from him. And there was in the evidence warehouse, there's a vial of blood, and Stephen Avery's blood was found in the victim's car.
That's right. 4 drops of blood.
So Stephen Avery's lawyer, who was an excellent lawyer, but evidently not good enough, got okay to open that evidence, that vial of blood that was taken years previously, and they open it up, and it's been tampered with. It's clearly...
There was a hypodermic needle punctured through the lid of it.
Somebody took blood out of it.
Someone took blood out of that. There's no question about that. Now the key didn't have any of the woman's DNA on it. It's like that key was scrubbed clean, and Stephen Avery's DNA was put on it. That's odd. People handle their car keys all day, constantly, and none of her DNA, none of her she never cleaned her fingernails with her with her car key. Maybe only guys do that. I don't know, but there's the key. There is the lack of blood evidence. There is the what is clearly planted blood. That blood sample was in the Manitowoc County Sheriff's evidence locker. Okay. Right. So they had access to it.
And the person who sealed it up or signed it in was the same officer who found the key.
That's right.
It's it's so ridiculous. Here's the ridiculous part. Now, don't get me wrong, folks. I think he's guilty. I think he's guilty. But I can't believe it wasn't thrown out. I can't believe the whole case wasn't thrown out, at least called a mistrial. It's absurd. It's absolutely absurd that so many things would be like. I mean, we're just, you know.
The big loser in this case is the Halbach family, the woman who was murdered.
Oh, yeah.
Because they, oh man, I mean, the prosecutor is just this pervert weirdo guy. That came out. That look,
that was wrong. That was wrong. That was wrong to point out that he was a pervert. It had nothing to do with the case.
Oh, I disagree, dude. I disagree because that's such a judgment thing. Dude, you cannot pass the bar to be a lawyer if you have any kind of like theft in your background, if you have any perjury in your background, because to be a lawyer, it's recognized by every bar association in every state that it's almost like the biblical standard for being a pastor. You have to be so far above board because you are entrusted with so much. Now, let me tell you something. If he were a registered sex offender, which he is now, if he were a registered sex offender at this time, would he qualify to be a DA? Would you want him for your lawyer?
Well, he's not a lawyer. He's a district attorney. And when I was watching him,
he's not a lawyer. He's a district attorney.
Sorry. So
he's a prosecuting attorney.
So, when watching the documentary and watching the arguments that he made and some of the outrageous things, I thought I could have been a district attorney. It was so bad.
It was really bad.
It was.
I want to talk about this though in light of. I think what really sealed his fate was the press conference. That graphic press conference where the DA sat down with the sheriff and talked about everything that happened. He did this, and then he did this. And then he did this.
You never see that happen.
He completely poisoned the jury pool in Manitowoc County to the point where they took it to a county over, like, Calumet. It's as if, like, oh, you go one county over, like, who are these strange alien people? No, I mean, come on. The TV covers that far, too. Dude, I live in Wisconsin. That was huge news here. That was huge news. It was played on every major town's news channel, that press conference, okay? So the entire jury pool was poisoned statewide. And how is that allowed? How is it legal?
I have no idea.
That a prosecutor...
People don't share facts from cases at all until it's all done.
Well, dude, you haven't... You want to get... I mean, this could get me into a rant on Adnan Syed and the whole thing with the Serial podcast.
Don't go there.
I won't go there because...
I haven't watched it. I can't wait.
But here's the thing. There is a fundamental problem with our justice system in that it is seemingly devised to get convictions, not truth. I think that there is no such thing as a presumption of innocence as guaranteed by the Constitution, which I think is just one of those common graces of God, that if you're accused of something, you should be presumed innocent. And look, even in the Old Testament, there has to be witnesses. You can't just, go arrest someone and lock them away.
Victims' rights, right? Victims' rights.
Victims' rights.
Another theonomous term there. Right?
Yeah. I got that. So the thing is like, look, theonomy is not the answer here. Theonomy doesn't answer these big questions. But what does? What does answer this question? This, again, is just a very simple gospel issue. Like, why is it that there aren't greater rules of decorum in terms of a way a prosecutor is supposed to handle a case and gathering evidence and things like that? There's so much prosecutorial misconduct in this country, and in this particular case, especially the collusion with the nephew's first attorney and the prosecutors to abandon that kid and to leave him in there to be questioned it was really bad. Now, I disagree with him. I personally don't think Stephen Avery did it. When I listen to him speak and when I watch him, he doesn't seem to me like someone who's lying, unless he is just a complete sociopath.
Well, wouldn't you have to be to do what that person did? Wouldn't you have to be? And there's things you don't know. Here's the thing about the documentary that really bugged me, okay?
Okay.
There's a witness on the stand that makes a great case for his innocence.
Yep.
And they don't show the cross-examination. That bugged me a lot.
Yeah.
There were great arguments made by the prosecution that said that Avery was guilty, but then they would show us the cross-examination. And that bugged me. Because the documentary is made to show that he's innocent.
There's no doubt that that is a documentary skewed to make us believe he's innocent. But the bottom line is that the burden for the state, the burden by which we put someone away for life or for any period of time on a criminal matter, is evidence beyond all reasonable doubt. And there is so much reasonable doubt in this case.
And
so
there's
much.
I think he did it for sure. I think for sure. How'd you like that? But I think he did it. I think he did it. But because the police did so many corrupt things, I think it just. How could you know? Did you know that they actually found additional DNA in her car?
Whose was it?
Stephen Avery's perspiration.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And did you know that Stephen Avery was harassing her? She had come to the house before, and she had told her boss she felt uncomfortable around him, and she said he was creepy. And on that day that she came,
a lot of creepy people who had never raped
on that day that she came. I am creepy. On that day when she came, he had requested that she come. For what it's worth, I think he did it.
Look, I've been in sales for a long time. Okay, up until my most recent job, I was 15 years on commission, and when you're good at what you do, people ask for you. So that doesn't bother me one bit. That.
Dude, women all over the world are saying you are an idiot right now.
No.
All over the world.
Look.
Email us at BibleThumpingWingnut@gmail.com.
For one thing,
I
think that the case that the state made against Dassey and Avery were two completely different cases.
Yeah.
One says she was murdered in the bedroom. The other one says it was in the garage. I mean, they dug up the garage floor to look for DNA blood evidence in the concrete.
That's because that's the story that they made up. They had to say she was killed in the garage because that's where they found a bullet.
Right. Exactly.
And that was probably planted.
Exactly. Of course it was planted, Tim. Tell me this. How does someone who owns a junkyard kidnap, rape, murder someone, and then not put the car in the car crusher that they parked the car 55 to 100 feet from?
You have to ask Stephen Avery.
Isn't that weird?
I don't know why he did that.
I mean, wouldn't a psychopath think to put the car in a car crusher?
You're not going to get him off on that. Not with me.
Dude, in fact, you would think he would have just left her in the car, crushed the whole thing.
Dude, he's sitting at a fire with body parts burning in it at night.
Well, but here's the thing. Didn't you think that bus driver's testimony that completely threw off the state's timeline?
It threw off
the state's timeline
the state's whole timeline was based on something they got the nephew to say. We need to move on because we could just go forever and ever and ever.
Well, nonetheless, here's where I think this all needs to be wrapped up. God's justice is perfect. Man's justice will always be imperfect. So, I mean, there's like, what did I looked up a statistic and now I don't remember it about the number of unsolved murders per year. It's a lot. I mean, it's staggering how many people get away with murder. But if they die without Christ, there will be justice. There will be justice. And that's something that we can take comfort in also. You know, the thing is, I just want to bring up this one point from the follow-up from the Serial podcast called Undisclosed. And this was lawyers who actually looked at the case of Adnan Syed and the prosecutorial misconduct that happened. They said this. They said two things happen when there's prosecutorial misconduct. Innocent people go to prison, and guilty people get set free because of court technicalities and hang-ups when people are just trying to get their guy. And they just so clearly state that when you follow the law and you just follow things by the letter, you have a much higher chance to come to the truth. And that's it. I mean, we still have to convict based on evidence, not on hunches and making things fit, almost like a evidential eisegesis. But, you know, God's justice is perfect, and we should take comfort in that. So.
We all got it in us. Some claim sinless. I just take that as just them admitting it. 1 John 1 and 10, tell me who you kidding. Stop eisegeting the text. Tell me what's written. In context, it's not complex. I confess my sin. Yes, I'm vexed, but there's progress. No secrets to digest. I regurgitate deceit, lasciviousness. Come on, people, don't pretend like you don't see this. Started from 2 adults, spread it to every fetus. Except Jesus came, healed diseases, cast out demons, by his blood redeemed us. I used to love the world like demons. Man, look what I did, Lord, lead us. Cause look at what we love to please us. You died for the X, this and that, blasphemers. If you are properly going to expound,
I want to hear the verse that Result does. Don't we? Let's play through that.
You must explain it.
This is Result, folks.
So that the word of God cuts into the heart of men.
All praise to him, even if this world is a stage for sin. Adam's descendants are entertainers, casting cinemas, infants, adolescents, saddles, peasants, and senators. No censorship meant to intoxicate. Think about it, sin's there when you concentrate. At the cross, sin was centralized, cause at the fall, men and sin was synchronized. So take a census, what would the percentage be of sinners in the 21st century? A condescending storm attempts to insinuate in a sense you're misinformed. Sin's incentives not sensitive. Romans 6:23 is what the sentence is. This is essential. We even sin.
That is Result, the Christian hip hop artist. Ivy Connerly did the first verse, then Result. This is the song called Sin, which really is the problem, right? Everything we've been talking about. And
because one of the principal ministries of the Holy Spirit is to convict the world of sin. So if you do not talk much about sin, count on it. The Holy Spirit is not much in your ministry.
Our society is Sodom, sin saturated, stagnated, sin, spiritual strength saps sedated. Satan snaring us systematically.
And the last verse is Shailin.
Like that guy.
Sorry about that. I was messing up your volume level. So what's going on with Result?
Next week, the 15th, his album drops. It is called The Elementology, if I'm pronouncing that right. That's the name of the album. It's going to be available on iTunes next Friday, and we are encouraging everybody to support that. He is it's got 17 tracks on it. He is featuring other artists. You heard Ivy Connerly and Shailin. He's got Timothy Brindle, Azakim, Fanatic.
Fat Fanatic?
Fat Fanatic, that's me. That's me. Evangela Alyssa Wade. He has got so many people who wanted to work with him. All right, they hear this guy, they want to work with him. We want to work with him also. He's a Wrath and Grace artist, and we are having a record release party next Friday night.
What is a record release party?
We are going to have Result here. We are going to play every song here in your basement.
Don't say we're going to play every song. There's 17 of them, bro.
We're going to play them all.
No.
Every single one of them.
Every single one of them?
All of them. We're going to talk about them. It's going to be a long show.
It's going to be an all-nighter, boy.
Look, man, here's the thing. This is good stuff. We want you to hear it. We want you to get a taste of it so you can support it. We're not asking you to, we're letting you take the car for a test drive before you buy it. So result will be here next week. If you haven't followed us here on Mixlr, go ahead and follow us because we are doing this live.
You are now in the mix. Wrath and Grace Radio. So make sure you keep it live right here.
The Bible Thumping Wingnut Show.
We got that.
Amen, somebody.
Gospel leads Fort Knox, call me orthodox. I am a Christian rapper. The radio refused to play stuff like this. Wrath and Grace Radio. Don't even touch that dial.
What do Jewish people believe? Or Muslims, a Mormon, or a Jehovah's Witness? If you've ever wondered, then the book What Do They Believe is for you. From the differing views on God and Jesus to sin, salvation, and eternity, What Do They Believe will help you get an accurate understanding of what other religions believe. What Do They Believe by Andrew Rappaport, available now on Kindle and at strivingforeternity.org.
So I get home from work today and I see the news. Apparently last night or early this morning, a policeman in Philadelphia. I was actually in Philadelphia today and I didn't listen to any of the local news or anything. I didn't see anything. But a police officer was shot. And I was watching it on the news and a police sergeant, maybe it was the police chief. It wasn't the mayor. It was a gentleman who was in high authority in the Philadelphia Police Department. He said something that I was like, whoa, no way. Obama would never, ever say that because apparently the guy who shot the police officer is brutal. It's really brutal. I don't know.
Yeah, that video is bad. It's a miracle. It's a miracle that officer survived.
Police cars just going very slow, like walking speed down a street, and a person with a gun walks straight up to it, starts shooting, even gets to the point where his gun is
whole arm. His whole arm is in the driver's window practically, like from the elbow to his hand at least.
And he's shooting. And
13 rounds. He fired off 13 rounds.
He's a bad shot. He hit the guy 3 times in the arm. And the amazing thing is this police officer gets out of his car while he's shot and shoots the guy in the butt.
He shot him, and he shot 3 times, went 3 for 3.
I didn't know he hit him 3 times. I just heard he
shot
hit
him 3 times. That guy is lucky to be upright yet.
So I'm going to play this. Listen to what this officer says, this sergeant or something. I'm not sure his rank.
When he got to police headquarters, police say he gave a limited confession.
Confessed to committing this cowardly act in the name of Islam. According to him, he believed that the police defend laws that are contrary to the teachings of the Quran.
So I hear that in my kitchen. As soon as I get home, the news was on. I hear that and I'm like, no way. Did a public official just say that?
He said it.
I couldn't believe it. I was like, wow. And I told my wife, you would never hear Obama say anything close to that. And the news clip that I watched, that was the only part that they showed. Surprisingly. But actually, right after he said that, the mayor of Philadelphia said this.
The mayor who you must submit to.
Amen.
The mayor was quick to point out that this man has a criminal record and his alleged actions should not be misconstrued.
In no way, shape, or form does anyone in this room believe that Islam or the teaching of Islam has anything to do with what you've seen on that screen. That is abhorrent. It's terrible, and it does not represent the religion in any way, shape, or form or any of its teachings.
So the police arrest the man and say, why did you do it? He says, I did it because my faith in Islam, that's what I believe in, so that's why I did it. And the mayor says, no, that has nothing to do with why you did it.
Yeah, it's when people tell you who they are, just believe them, okay? The Muslim told us who he is. I believe him. The mayor told us who he is. He's a liar and an idiot, and I believe it. I believe him. I take his word for it. I mean, come on. Can't we just exercise a little sense here? David Wood made a great video today.
Yeah, he did.
That was talking about David Wood is. If you don't know him, he is an apologist, and I think what is it, Acts 27 or Acts? I can't remember his website now.
17.
Yeah, Acts 17 apologetics. So he basically engages Muslims. He knows the Quran very well, and so I would encourage you to go check out that video, because it talks about, like, look, I kind of get what the mayor is saying. Like, this is not what Islam is. You know, I almost think like that's almost what he's trying to say, is like, well, he can say it's in the name of Islam, but that's not what Islam is. And the video that David Wood made, I kind of confused David Wood and JD Hall there for a second. I'm not sure who would be most offended by that. But I encourage you to go and watch that video, because he does lay out, like, look, you can say that's not what Islam teaches, but to say that is to just demonstrate your ignorance about Islam and the Quran, because it clearly teaches violence against those who are not Muslim. It just does. So I think the sooner that we come to grips with that, the sooner we might actually, start doing something about it. The new year, Tim. 2016 is here. The new year, and we have a new top city. Plano, Texas is number one, followed by our friends in Boise, Idaho. Aren't there militias out in Boise too? I thought I heard that somewhere. We have Laurinburg, North Carolina, Grand Prairie, Texas, Roswell, Georgia, Mount View, California, San Francisco, California, St. Paul, Minnesota, Nampa, Idaho, and guess who's rounding out the top 10? Phoenix has not forgotten us. Phoenix, Arizona, still in the house.
Is that the last week or month? Or
That's
what is that?
that's since the new year.
Oh.
That is our New Year stats. And with this New Year, we have a lot of stuff happening here in 2016. We got the Striving for Eternity conferences coming up in April, July, and September. We need your help to get there. Go to patreon.com/BibleThumpingWingnut. Give us your support if you feel so led. We would certainly appreciate it. You can find the link on BibleThumpingWingnut.com. Did I miss anything?
I have another militia song. Do you want me to play that?
Is it by Ted Nugent?
No.
I'm not interested. I wonder if there's any hip-hop militia songs.
That's what it is. It's kind of.
Really?
Kind
Wrath and Grace?
No, it's not. Not Wrath and Grace. Anyway, listen to our next podcast. We're actually going to do a year-end in review, which is something we promised we would do, but never got around to it.
We're doing it next. Stay tuned. Live. Don't shake your head at me.